Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, considering whether Hitler rose to power on the back of a weak political system. Was Weimar government weak? Well, there seems to be a lot of evidence that it was. Peeling off some examples, I'm thinking of Ebert's pact with Groner on the very first day of the Republic in November 1918, and the reliance on the Freikorps during the Spartacist uprising just a few months later in January 1919. Then we had the warning signs of how vulnerable Weimar was to a right-wing putsch with the Kapp putsch in 1920. The army didn't stand by the government, which was obliged to flee Berlin. Jump forward to 1923, and the government's only reaction to the occupation of the Ruhr was to call for passive resistance, which led to economic ruin. And there was Hitler's putsch in Munich and his trial. Let's remind ourselves of why Hitler and the others got off so lightly. The court's rationale was that they were led in their action by a pure patriotic spirit and the most noble will. They were trying to overthrow the elected government. Even the recovery from 1923 was reliant on American loans. And of course, successive governments failed to deal with the Great Depression. Now look, I could mount a good defence for Weimar governments, and still using these same examples. Given the circumstances, could any government have done better? But the thing is, the perception was that they were weak, and that's what was in the minds of millions of Germans, from the elite down to the ordinary man and woman on the street. So the next question is, why was it weak? It was associated with defeat, with the stab in the back and the Treaty of Shame. Again, whether that was deserved or not, that was the perception. And if that wasn't enough, as I've already pointed out in my chaos video, the elites were still in place, in the economy, in the Reichstag, in the civil service, in the judiciary, in the army, and they didn't want Weimar to work, and they were in a position to see that it didn't. And of course, neither did the communists want it to work. And another source of Weimar's permanent weakness lay in its ultra-democratic constitution. It adopted the purest form of proportional representation imaginable, and as we all know, it led to a large number of parties, and in the 1930 election, 10 parties polled over 1 million votes, when only 60,000 votes were needed for a party to get someone elected. This not only meant that extremist parties were always elected to the Reichstag, but it led to weak, unstable coalition governments, with frequent changes of government and frequent elections. So that between 1919 and January the 30th, 1933, there were 20 different governments, each lasting on average 239 days, or one every 8 months. And though minority parties never constituted more than 15% of the total vote, it still led to what the Germans called Kuhhandel, cattle trading, as parties bargained on behalf of the sections of society that had elected them, often contrary to the national interest, and always requiring compromise from all the parties involved. It also served as a constant reminder of just how divided German society was. To balance this, the president was given enormous power. The president was head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The president appointed the chancellor, the head of government, And even though he had to have the confidence, or at least the toleration of the Reichstag, without either, the president could still keep him in post. The president could also dismiss him, regardless of Reichstag support. Under Article 48 of the Constitution, the president could declare a state of emergency and pass laws, even the budget, by special decree, bypassing the need for Reichstag approval. He could also suspend individual rights, so that in this ultra-democratic constitution was a clear pathway to dictatorship or autocracy. Ebert used the powers of Article 48 no less than 136 times, averaging 2 times for every month of his presidency. Stresemann was only able to govern with an enabling act, which the Reichstag passed, and by using presidential decrees. And in 1932, Hindenburg issued 66 decrees, whilst the Reichstag passed only 5 laws. And don't forget, both inside and outside the Reichstag, the elites, who would never be reconciled to the Republic and democracy, were left in positions of power. The feudal Junker landlords, the industrial barons who ruled over the cartels, the officials of the Imperial Civil Service were still in place, the judiciary, the police, the universities, and most important of all, the army. And there was the Freikorps too. And so we come full circle to the evidence of Weimar's weakness. Let's pick things up where I left off on the first slide. There was no stability. For goodness sake, even Stresemann, the saviour of 1923, was soon ousted. In the golden years, there was a brief period of stability on the surface, but with the Great Depression, violence as well as instability returned to Weimar politics. If instability had ever really gone away. Confidence in Weimar evaporated, and the elite seized their chance, and we enter the period of presidential government. Indeed, Brüning's cabinet had been known as the Cabinet of Experts, and von Pappen's the Cabinet of Barons. Until, with the elites thinking they can control Hitler and achieve what they wanted by using him as a figurehead, Hitler was offered the chancellorship. So, there is a strong argument that a weak political system and weak government played a major part in Hitler's rise to power. Though that is, of course, ignoring Hitler and what he offered the German people, which you must not do. I hope this has been useful for you. I think I've given you plenty to think about. Don't forget, there's my website to help you too. But for now, let me thank you for listening and wish you the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.